Hey, we're gonna look at something during this discussion that one aspect of it a lot of times gets overlooked. And there's a series of wars that occur prior to the American Revolution. A lot of these wars are fought primarily back in England. They do spill over into the colonial territories in the Americas, and a lot of them honestly are fought over those territories. We are increasingly, and as we get into the 1700s, we're increasingly starting to hold on to all of the territory that is in North America. So the English colonies are moving slightly west. They don't actually expand too awful far to the west, but the French colonies are spilling down from Canada and kind of pushing eastward up against the English colonies. To the south, the Spanish are pushing up, and they're moving up from Florida and sort of infringing a little bit on Georgia and moving north from Louisiana and places like that. And so what you're basically doing is you're seeing these various colonial powers butting up against each other, and there's no more land for them to grab a hold of, and so they'll have little squabbles over border issues and stuff like that. And the big one that has an actual, all these have results, but the big one that has the most profound result is the French and Indian War. French and Indian War runs from about 1754 to 1763. And it's called the French and Indian War because it's primarily fought against the French as well as their Native American allies. The English also have Native American allies, but it's just pegged the French and Indian War because it's against the French and their Native American allies. The outcome of the war is pretty significant, and that's addressed in the book. Sorry. But the outcome of the war, like I said, is addressed in the book. The big thing, though, the really significant thing that comes out of this war is a change in mindset. And what we're talking about is that the colonials, the English colonials, received an offer back from King George in England. And the king offered that, if the colonials would volunteer in enough numbers to actually fight this war on their territory against the French, if they would volunteer in large enough numbers, we won't raise taxes to pay for this war on the colonials. Wars are expensive. And every war, every single war, we're going to have to raise taxes to be able to pay for this because it is so expensive. For this one in particular, we're talking about shipping supplies, shipping people from England to the colonies, paying them deployment rates. We're also having to supply them. We're having to feed them. We're having to, make sure they have enough equipment to actually carry out these campaigns. That is insanely costly. So every time we have a war, we're going to raise taxes to pay for it. It's just inevitable. It's something that we're going to have to do. So the king makes this offer. If you guys volunteer in enough numbers, we won't raise your taxes. We'll have to raise taxes back in England because we absolutely have to pay for this, but we won't raise taxes on the colonies. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to stick to that. It's, there's probably, every politician's not ever 100% truthful, but there's probably some argument there that he was kind of leading them on. But even if he did intend to stick to this deal, wars are expensive. A lot of times, we will try not to raise taxes, but it just happens. We have to. It's inevitable. So, but he does make this offer, and the English colonials volunteer in huge numbers. 20,000 the first year, 20,000 the second year. So lots and lots of people volunteer to fight in this war. So it does get them motivated. And a couple of things happen that are going to change their mindset. One of the things that's going to happen is that the colonial militias are very much underappreciated by the British professional soldiers. And honestly, it's kind of understandable. You've got the British professional army that have literally trained for these campaigns, and they absolutely know what they're doing. And on the colonial side, you've got a bunch of farmers, and they're fine, they're great, but they don't have, at the outset anyway, they don't have the skill set for all of this. They've never been trained. They don't quite know what they're doing. They're going to be very effective. Don't get me wrong, but it's understandable that these professional soldiers are not going to view these guys as their equals. We would do the same thing. If the United States military, is having some kind of an issue and they put out a call for volunteers, and immediately, a bunch of people just show up, they're going to appreciate the help. But these guys aren't the same as professionally trained soldiers, and that's the take that the British soldiers are going to have. And so, there's going to be some animosity. And we'll see that after this war, especially when the Crown is going to keep British soldiers in the colonies, that there's an ongoing animosity. You guys really, really hammered down on us during the French and Indian War, and we contributed to that. We helped to win the war, and you guys didn't respect that. And so there's some animosity that's going to be around. That's pretty significant. Not the biggest thing, though. The biggest thing, and this again had the help of those British professional soldiers, but you have large numbers of English colonial volunteers, and this is remarkable. The English forces are going to defeat the French forces. They're going to be victorious in the French and Indian War. And we're going to kind of overlook a little bit from our colonial perspective. We're going to kind of overlook a little bit the contributions from the English professional army. But, even with that, if you think about it, we have a tremendous number of English colonials that went up against a world power, France right now, in the 1600s, the 1700s, even edging into the 1800s, has the most powerful military on the planet. They're the most accomplished. They can do pretty much anything they want. France has been defeated by a group of English farmers and shopkeepers and merchants and stuff like that. And so a bunch of colonials are going to go up against a world power and be victorious. They had some help from the English professional soldiers, but they're going to pull this off. And so in about 10 years, because this war ends in 1763, 1776 rolls around. In about 10 years, it's not that far outside of the realm of possibility to consider that we did this before against that French military that was stationed in the Americas. We knocked them out. It's not really that far of a new idea to do the same thing with the British. And so when we approach 1776, it's not hey, we're just going to try this out and we're going to go up against another world power for the first time. No, we've done this before 10 years ago. And so that was, almost like a dress rehearsal going up against the French. If you can beat the French, you can probably beat the English. And so the French and Indian War besides generating that animosity between the colonial forces and the English professional forces, you've also got a tremendous morale boost from the English colonials. They've defeated a world power. It's not that far afield to consider doing that again. And so 1776 rolls around. They're not really that surprised with the prospect of taking this other thing on. So, French and Indian War has a magnificent sort of a mind shift, mind situation. That's completely wrong. Sort of a mind shift for the colonials there, and so they're going to move forward on that. Thanks.